Hello, my name is Simon Gray and welcome to BVI Business Insight. Welcome. My name is Simon Gray. I'm the Head of Business Development and Marketing at BVI Finance, and welcome to another edition of BVI Business Insight. Today I'm delighted to advise you that I have got one of our most esteemed members of our BVI community, Ms. Carolina Lacerda, who is the Managing Director of CORPAG. CORPAG is a company that has a long tradition with BVI. It began in 1972 in Curaçao and now spans 4 different continents and has in excess of 20 countries where it has a prominent exposure. It covers private clients, which includes trusts, inventive funds, but also corporate registration services, as well as regulatory compliance. So Carolina, welcome to join us today. And Carolina is a lawyer by training, Brazilian national and also Panamanian, and with a most impressive pedigree in terms of financial services. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
A pleasure. First of all, what is it, Carolina, do you think that makes the BVI so conducive to international financial business?
Well, I think there are a few elements. I don't think there is one thing that you can say is unique to the BVI. I think we have a combination of factors that makes us unique. I think the most important is costs. On that same level, I will think that we move with the markets and we have a foresight, if we can use that word, to certain institutions and vehicles. So it allows us then to jump in things that other jurisdictions might have not considered. So as a result, then we have very good legislation. Not just that, we have a very good then judicial system that it uses based on UK law, so we can anything can be solved. Some of those issues can be solved then here in the BVI, Eastern European Court. They can go all the way to the UK Privy Council. So that gives us those 2 elements as well that I think are very important. Also, one of the things that I like to, that I'm very proud of, is the human resource that we have in the BVI. The people in the BVI are prepared. We're adaptable. We go with the flow. I said we go with the punches and we go with the flow. But and we are very resilient. If it's one of the things that I think make the BVI now even better was going through Irma, how the financial services responded and how also these institutions responded. So that is just, I think, globally, what we show the world on that moment is just a piece of what the BVI is all about.
Sure.
Yeah.
No, that's good. And my understanding is that if you take Irma, one of the most impressive products of that was that within 36 hours we were registering companies in the BVI. We were not doing it from afar at our business continuity site, although we could have done that. We were actually doing it here, so people were still operating in the registry and registering companies. And I think that's quite an impressive outcome given the devastation of the hurricane.
Yeah, I think so. And it's something, again, we should be all very proud of what it was achieved. And one of the things that all business here have business continuation plans, so it's part of law firms and service providers like myself, and testing those products when that time came and see that we have the backup from the BVI registry and the Financial Services Commission and the BVI government was hugely important for us. And if anyone had any doubt before, which I doubted, most of the service providers here have been here in the market for quite a bit. It just made us even more endeared to the jurisdiction.
I mean, COVID-19 has been something of a challenge and a distraction in 2020. It's fair to say that January expectations have turned out somewhat differently. Presumably, based on the experience of Hurricanes Irma and Maria, which happened within 10 days, COVID-19 pretty straightforward, do you think?
For most of us, it was. Because, again, we were already preparing for hurricane season. So once this happened, at the beginning, we thought it would be something like, I think, not just the BVI, most of the countries thought it wasn't something that will hit us on the side of the Pacific and we're going to be fine. But yeah, I just thought that we were way better than a lot of the jurisdictions in our sister islands in the Caribbean on how to deal with. And people did their best to the point that, at this point today, we don't have any active cases of COVID. So it was not just what the government set as the parameters, but actually what the people did, and the businesses too, and
Sure.
and the measures that were that took place on that time. So yeah, I think COVID, it was still a tense period, don't get me wrong, and it also could affect the world in such a large scale that it also affects some business in the BVI.
Sure.
However, for the financial services providers, we were able to continue business as usual in 90% of them. So,
And commendable. I think actually some wondered that business continuity happened so effectively 2 years ago that we were slightly concerned that people wouldn't come back, but they did,
yeah.
which is testament to what you said, I think, of the infrastructure and the legal structure and arbitration structure that we have here. In terms of other potential metaphoric storms, there is an increasing trend with extraterritorial regulation. It began perhaps with base erosion, profit share influence, but then with CRS and FATCA. We responded to those. Most recently, we responded to economic substance from the European Union. My understanding is that we're now on the EU list of cooperative countries, or the white list. Any thoughts on that?
I think, again, it shows that the work that has been done, not just for government officials, but the partnership that we have. Government officials, especially with the BVI finance, that has facilitated so much discussions, the working groups, the consultation periods. It was a very intense year for all of us on that end. And I think that partnership showed at the end of what it is. And we became whitelisted, if say such thing, cooperative jurisdictions, as a result of that. And I think especially the work that BVI finance does, we probably wouldn't be able to achieve it without you guys, and it's something that all of us service providers are very aware and very proud of, to have you on our board. So and again, it's a partnership. So government as well has been very supporting of this particular initiative, and conversations have been done to the highest level of government, not just here, but with the European Commission and OECD on that regard. So I think the fact that we are cooperative jurisdictions is a result of everybody's effort. Yeah, and again, working together towards a goal.
No, absolutely. Well, much appreciated. But in terms of working together, something I think the BVI is very good at, it's our professional bodies or our trade associations. And the Association of Registered Agents has been particularly proactive in the economic substance space. What are your experiences of dealing with that level of engagement and communication to try and get the optimum outcome for the BVI?
No, I think it's been absolutely fundamental to how the implementation now is happening. And also, Association of Registered Agents is not a new association in that sense. And I think it has a very long-standing tradition, and the board has been doing a great job, not just for this year, but the previous years as well. And it's been fundamental to achieve what we have. Without them and the cooperation between the other BVI Bar Association and other associations, I don't think we would have been able to say what we are saying today and say, we're whitelisted and economic substance is going and business continues to grow. I don't think we would have been able to be in that position without everybody working toward the same goal. So.
And incredibly impressive, and not only always on time, but often ahead of schedule and within budget. Which is
absolutely, which is very, very important. Budget is absolutely important, but especially now in COVID times is even worse. So I think, again, it's part of the characteristics of our jurisdictions is efficiency, low costs, and sophisticated products. So it permeates through sophisticated associations and sophisticated conversations and productive results. So.
Sure. And my understanding is that the various trade bodies and the regulator and regulated work so closely together in producing really specific circumstances of how to comply with every element of the 8 relevant activities. Of those relevant activities, what are your thoughts and experience of dealing with those solutions?
So far, it's been great. The process is quite straightforward. Legislation is it's quite clear on how to define those. In the sense of implementation of the activities itself, of how they're declared, each company is a unique case. So I wouldn't dare to say one solution fits all, because especially in private client work, you say then each case is unique. But it's been quite straightforward, and again, as a result of consultation, of people having the capacity, the knowledge, the expertise to guide us in this process, from not just professionals, lawyers and partners and QCs, but also high level of IT for development of BOSS and a modification of BOSS. So it's a as I keep saying, is a collaborative effect. Sorry for my accent. But yeah, we couldn't achieve it if we didn't have the right partners, and I think it's one of the things that you should be very proud of BVI. We do have the right partners.
No, absolutely, and greatly appreciated. One thing which intrigues me, I mean, we have very much here a tradition of English and Welsh common law, and that works extremely effectively globally. But of course, so much business comes in from countries where the tradition has been a civil code, the legacy of Napoleon, which has much to commend it. You trained, I think, in Brazil and Panama as a lawyer. What is it? And Europe as well, but perhaps not in Britain.
No, not in Britain.
But common law didn't quite influence the rest of Europe, alas, apart from perhaps Malta and Cyprus. But what is it that so captivates individuals in those countries to our common law tradition, given that their instinct would be more of a civil code?
I think it comes, if we go back then to the origins of common law, we're talking about a set of rules that started as a common practice. Civil law starts with codifications. And I think at the time, we're talking about the expansion of the British Empire and those days. I think it comes from particularly that. And then, of course, as a consequence, then you have the United States, and then you have Britain, already with established empire in those days. And I think as a consequence of it is a more friendly jurisdiction to do business with. It moves quicker in the sense of how new rules are applied, and jurisprudence can be, it's a lot quicker to obtain and follow a line of thought in jurisprudence-wise and cases than I would think will be in civil law jurisdictions. Is also how the interpretation of the law goes in a civil law system versus how is it done in the UK in a common law system. Civil and common law.
Sure.
So I think it's just a historical inherence of doing business.
Yeah.
I think that also makes it then more appealing. And in fairness as well, the largest financial centers are in common law jurisdictions. So we have to deal with that. And so that I think summarizing will be all of your questions, I think, will be because the largest financial centers are, or were historically, there's a shift now going, but we're still basing on common law.
Indeed. Well, we still have Hong Kong for the moment, with some increasingly minor influence, it would appear. One thing which intrigues me, we've now got the new International Arbitration Centre. Now, obviously, that is still a legal construct, but that is obviously designed to try and introduce, hopefully, a faster track, but also a more cost-effective approach to resolving legal disputes. And I think one of the virtues that comes out of every crisis, such as COVID or whatever, hurricane, global economic recession, is the opportunities that it brings in terms of restructuring, liquidations, insolvency, and etc. And presumably that's reinforced by the legal system that you just described.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And at the end of the day, time is of essence for everybody. Sure. And I think arbitration provides a quicker way of solving problems that are actually going through the judicial system. Each has each system has their advantages. I think particularly in arbitration and especially in the BVI, because we have the qualified personnel, we have the expertise, is something that I strongly encourage my clients. It doesn't have to wait for the court, and
Sure.
and it's, again, at the end of the day, is it quicker, and we have the qualified personnel, so why not? So again, it all becomes, if we don't evolve and if we don't adapt, we're dead. So
Sure.
I think it goes for every single thing that we do in life, especially financial services.
Good, and a great word, evolve. We're going to take a break there,
Yeah.
and I'll welcome you back very shortly. But thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
How does financial services benefit the BVI? It's been around for more than 3 decades before the World Wide Web and is now part of the everyday life of our islands. More than 2,200 people are directly employed in financial services, and another 3,000 jobs are supported indirectly. Jobs are corporate service providers, lawyers, insolvency, accounting, banking, insurance, regulators. That's almost 27% of the national workforce. Of those, more than 65% are BVI landers and belongers. What about restaurants, supermarkets, or shops? Well, 100% of people eat. So, they buy food. They buy swimsuits and shampoo and cars and power tools and plantains and fish and roti and pates. Financial services employees buy painkillers and lots of beer. Then there's electricity and dental floss and toilet paper and pretty much everything else. And everyone needs a roof over their heads and a place to do business, so we all rent or buy from a local landlord. Housing and office space alone means millions of dollars into the pockets of BVI families. At the end of the day, everyone benefits, including charities who receive thousands of dollars every year. And more than 60% of all government revenues come from fees paid by financial services. This money is spent on schools, roads, ports, scholarships, the environment, health, sports, children, youths, and the elderly. Financial services contributes more than $290 million to the BVI economy. That's more than 30% of all economic activity is driven by financial services. This creates thousands of jobs all across the islands, meaning more people have a way to earn a living. What does financial services do for the BVI? Let's just say, it keeps our lights on. Financial services is everybody's business. So, come on, mind your business, and let's not keep this to ourselves.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Simon Gray is here from BVI Finance, Business Development and Marketing. I am absolutely delighted to have with us today Carolina Lacerda from CORPAG, the Managing Director of CORPAG, and we're going to go right back in with our discussion on some of the core elements and services which is offered by the British Virgin Islands. So welcome back, Carolina.
Thank you.
Earlier on we used the word evolution, and I think that's one of the most important and enduring elements of what we can do here in terms of laws and regulation. One of the things that we do have to comply with globally, it's the international standards of the International Monetary Fund, etc. And any thoughts on that with, for example, you mentioned the BOSS system. Can you elaborate on that at all?
Yeah, I think BOSS is, I like to say, is something I'm very proud of that product as part of one of his users. It's
and just remind me, BOSS stands for
beneficial
ownership,
owners,
secure system.
Secure
Okay.
systems. Yeah, so quite an interesting name, but it actually does what it says it does. So it's a secure system for beneficial ownership information, to the point that has a lot of layers of security to access the system in the first place. Access is limited to companies and proper licensed companies on the financial services as well, and also allows for authorities, for enforcement authorities, to have access to information available there. Of course, it's not just knock on the door and please provide the information. We're talking about going through the proper channels, UK enforcement agencies, and then the request is made to the BVI. Also for that is the time of response it's quite impressive, to be honest. although the standard rules is 24 hours, responses are obtained between the first 2 hours of those requests. So now sounds a bit strange when we explain that, but there is a reason for it. We are about BVI. We're very protective of our jurisdiction, and quite right so. And one of those things, BOSS, is being fundamental for that, and to the point that it's been using other jurisdictions as a model. And one of them, a few government officials from different countries have been visiting the BVI. I had the pleasure to have lunch with a couple of them, and their main intrigue was how the BOSS system works, and because of how it's set up. So it protects not just the beneficial ownership information in there, it protects as well the agents, it protects the jurisdiction.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a most impressive solution, and one that hopefully will be emulated or replicated around the world. Let's move on to some of the specifics. So, for example, you do quite a lot of private client work, so presumably let's enter the trust and perhaps the fund space to some extent. Tell me about the trust regime here, and perhaps some of our innovative products which are so popular.
Yeah, I think based on common law principles, applies the same as it would be in the UK, it would have been in the BVI. However, we do have a specific, what I call it, uniqueness to our systems. So again, is it more cost effective? It's more simple, straightforward. We have a product in particular, which is the Vista Trust, it stands for the Virgin Islands and Special Trust Act. So that particular trust applies only, it's created only to held shares on BVI companies and limits the interaction of the trustee on the company itself. So allows that company to have certain flexibility on how the businesses are conducted. So it makes things a lot more straightforward. It's still providing the same protections as a regular trust. So of course we have revocable and irrevocable trusts. So again, trust it is a very unique product to each case. Yeah. So it's difficult to generalize the uses of trust, but I would like to say that Vista is still a very good product. I'll call it as a byproduct of that. Then we have the PTCs, which is the private trust companies.
Yes.
So, which is our BVI companies, they are designed to act as trustee for trusts in a family or for one specific purpose. So those restrictions on that particular instrument is that it is not allowed to provide services to the public because it will require a license from the regulator.
So it's a specific purpose.
It is a very specific purpose, and it's in a combination with the PTC and Vista Trusts are just. It's a very sought out product, especially in Asia, when we talk about generational handovers. So, and it's very unique to the BVI, and then becomes what I was telling you earlier about how fast we can implement those products. Then we rely on the registry to help us create a PTC, and in 24 hours, less than 24 hours, we have a company incorporated. So everything done electronically and absolutely to the point, and the quality of the work that we receive as well from the registry is excellent. So helps us facilitate a lot more.
Sure. And
those are results of needs that were perceived not just this past 5 years, but longer than that. So those products have quite a few years now, but came out as a necessity before it became a necessity. So now they're very much spread out.
No, that was very eloquently put. I mean, a key word you used as we concluded the first session was evolution. I think the second one from this so far is responsiveness to the customer needs.
Yeah.
And presumably the innovative nature of the Vista and the PTCs are absolutely integral to selling the trust concept to a non-common law audience in much of the world who are well versed in civil code. Yeah. So presumably that helps with that sort of selling point.
Yeah, absolutely. I will cite a few countries, for example, on how some countries still in civil law have issues with trust, because it's a concept purely from common law jurisdictions. However, they are treated differently for tax purposes. For example, in the case of Argentina, for tax-specific reasons, you will have irrevocable trusts because there is a clear separation then on the assets and what is happening with that trust. So, and it depends, it varies for each country. And in our case, for example, it's something that we keep track in every single country, especially now.
Good.
And when new legislations come about. And not just us, is as my company, the CORPAG, but it's something that we do together with you guys and all the other service providers. So we do, the fact that we have working groups specifically designed to look at these things and come up with products has facilitated a lot on
Good.
how things are implemented.
And the key words, customer service, responsiveness yet again.
Exactly. So,
Good.
and elevates the standards for everybody else around us. So because we do operate on high standards in the BVI, so it helps us showcase our products. Because as I said, there are several offshore jurisdictions, but the quality of them are not the same. So yeah.
Good, absolutely. Let's stick with products. Let's move on to funds.
Yep.
I think one of the most important elements of innovation in funds is the approved fund regime. Can you tell us something about that? I believe it's quite good for family offices.
Yeah, I think so too. In comparison to other jurisdictions, not naming a few, if we compare the same product, not the same product, but something similar in other offshore jurisdictions, the advantages in the BVI, again, are costs, time it takes to incorporate, and again, we have the right human capital on island. So the registry, the Financial Services Commission are quite quick on returning those products with their approval. The implementation of them are quite straightforward. The requirements are quite clear. So not just to creating them, it's a quicker process than compared to other jurisdictions. Following through is also clear. So, and I think especially we're talking as well about the incubator and the BVI incubator funds are products that came out as a foresight of things that are happening. And now we see how quick is evolving to those uses. In particular, is something that we've seen quite a bit in the past year. In the past 9 months. So there's becoming this more and more interested on the fund side, as a consequence, I guess, of how the markets are moving. But it's part of the day-to-day operation.
Sure.
So again, it comes back to evolution, customer service, adaptability, and having the right partners.
And of course, we now, as of a few days ago, we have the new private investment fund regime, very much focused on VenCap and private equity types of structures. You mentioned incubators. I mean, my understanding is they began life really for the hedge fund industry. But am I right in thinking that they've rapidly been adopted by the new digital asset and crypto regime?
Absolutely. And also the BVI, again, being how we are on the forefront of a lot of the evolution of things. We already have legislation that came about facilitating digital signatures, not just as a consequence of COVID, because it was already in the pipeline, but it just made it more relevant. So we have, we're talking about everything related to what I call a web solutions. So we have online solutions, digital signatures, and everything on that, because it's a lot of things. So otherwise we can spend the entire day talking about digital products. And but I think people are seeing how fast they're growing, and we have to remember digital world moves a different pace. And again, we have to adapt to those. And it's how quick few months ago no one knew what TikTok was.
Exactly.
Now what we were talking about. So if you don't know what it is, I don't know what you're, unless you, my husband, we don't have kids, so could be that he doesn't know much about that. But it's a very important product, and how quick is affecting how things are doing business. One of the Instagram is one of those. When it started, people thought it was nice to post pictures of themselves. Now we're talking about business. They're done 100% through Instagram platforms, and they don't appear anywhere else. And those are companies that are creating billionaires around the globe. So if we're not able to adapt, we're going to lose on it. And the BVI, we're very good at adapting and foreseeing these things, and I think we're on the right path.
Well, we concluded the first session with evolution. Now we're going into adapting. So there's a common theme here, which is absolutely correct and very incisive. You obviously have a background in Brazil and in Panama. Panama has a very strong connection with the BVI, something that we are enormously proud of, and hopefully Panama is as well.
That's right.
Have you any comments on that extremely strong bond between us?
I think it's, I think Panama came first. Panama legislation dates back from 1925. However, the BVI came after, but I think it still is a very strong connection, because one wouldn't exist without the other to a certain extent to this day. So it's the BVI started to get a track after Panama was going through their dictatorship. So people are starting to find a new jurisdiction, and again, having the good heads we have on island, why not? Please don't hold me on it. I think we will continue to have more developments of digital solutions. In the sense, globally, I think it will force different types of phone, different types of computers, in order to focus more on verification of identity, because it is a risk. When you move in the digital world, there is, it's nice and exciting, but creates other risks. So I think we will focus a bit more on mitigating those risks once those innovations become a necessity.
Okay.
We're talking about now a lot of people are forced to work from home. Having a proper internet and secure internet system at home, if you're not handling confidential information, wasn't necessarily in anybody's, some people, in the majority of the people, thought process. Now it is.
Yeah.
So then you will force different types of security to implement at home, or different type of products.
And work-life balance, a dramatic improvement.
Of course. And then also permeates in those characteristics as well.
Okay.
And then how things are going to change, I think we're going to be focusing more on quality of life, work-life balance. I think things will become more passionate work-wise. I think now, if you're working from home and you don't necessarily feel in your job, you might not necessarily do a good job, but then you now are, which in the other end, then people are very passionate about it. And I think, which is impressive, considering that everybody's in their own homes, brought more people together.
Yeah.
So especially in the work environment, that's the feeling that I have right now.
Sure.
And I think we'll continue that trend.
Sure.
Probably less travel, but doesn't mean that we cannot stay connected.
And let's conclude on work-life balance, because one thing which I was very impressed at looking at your website was the focus on people.
Yeah.
Not just your customers, but also your staff and your colleagues. So Carolina Lacerda, thank you very much for sharing with us your incisive and penetrating thoughts today.
Thank you.
And taking out valuable time from your very, very busy day. Thank you, Carolina.
Thank you for having me.
Simon Gray just concluding. Join us next time for our next edition of BVI Business Insights.